Welcome to the Privacy Report. We're tackling a privacy paradox that I think uh, genuinely catches almost everyone off guard. It's this idea that your phone or your tablet is probably tracking your exact physical movements even when you think you're safe, when you've turned off Wi-Fi and disconnected from the internet.
It's a concept we sometimes call the invisible net, and it really changes how we have to think about our own data security. I think we've all been taught to believe that if we just toggle off Wi-Fi or cellular, we've basically cut the cord.
Right, you're offline. You're invisible.
But the way tracking works now has evolved so far beyond needing a constant live internet connection.
So the big question we're trying to answer today is, I think, a really essential one. How do apps and this whole data ecosystem watch you when you've deliberately tried to go offline?
Our mission is to really unpack those mechanisms, things like beacons, hidden identifiers, and then show how this massive multi-billion-dollar data broker world merges your offline physical life with your online history. And then most importantly, we're going to give you some really concrete, actionable steps you can take to, cut down on that tracking footprint.
Before we jump in, just a quick reminder for everyone listening, you can subscribe to our email newsletter. You'll get more context on all these topics at theprivacyreport.net.
Okay, so let's unpack this. The whole idea of offline tracking, it sounds like something from a spy movie,
Yeah,
but you're saying the tech is already here. It's in our phones right now.
it absolutely is. And it's not just one single thing. It's more like a multi-layered approach.
Yeah.
All these different technologies are working together. When we talk about offline tracking, we mean technologies that are either passively listening for signals or actively broadcasting your own device's identifiers, all without needing to be online to upload the data right away. I think when people hear wireless tracking, they immediately think of GPS or maybe connecting to a router. But this is much stealthier. What's like the number one mechanism we should be thinking about in public spaces?
That would definitely be the Bluetooth beacon.
A beacon. So
Yeah, beacons are just these small, low-energy radio transmitters, and businesses, retailers are the big one, but also museums, airports, they place them in physical locations. Your phone isn't connecting to them, it's just listening for them.
Okay.
And any app that you've given Bluetooth permission to, it's just running in the background, recording the unique ID of that beacon and how strong the signal is.
So if a store puts a beacon at the front door and another one over in the electronics section and maybe one by the checkout, my phone is logging when I was near each one.
Exactly. And because the signal strength tells it how close you are, these analytics companies can pinpoint your indoor location, sometimes down to the exact aisle you were browsing in for 5 minutes. It's how they track your physical path through the store, even if your phone never leaves your pocket.
That is incredibly specific.
Yeah.
But what if I'm really careful and I turn off location services completely? Does that stop this?
And that's where it gets really interesting. Unfortunately, no. Turning off location services doesn't make you anonymous because of something called Wi-Fi probe requests.
Probe requests.
Yeah, even when you're not connected to a Wi-Fi network, your device is constantly sending out these little automatic requests, basically shouting into the air, looking for networks it already knows.
Wait, so my phone is looking for my home Wi-Fi when I'm, miles away at a shopping center.
It is. It's a core function of the OS. It's just trying to be helpful. But those probe requests contain a unique identifier for your device. And specialized collectors in public spaces can log those signals. So they build a map of where your device has been, completely separate from your GPS settings. It's totally passive. Your phone is just doing its job, but that job is being listened to.
So we have beacons for inside a store, probe requests for general movement patterns,
Yeah.
and then there's the raw sensor data.
That's the third layer, and it adds all this behavioral context. A lot of apps, health, fitness, even weather apps, get permission to access your raw motion sensor and accelerometer data. They're recording your walking speed, altitude changes, stuff like that. The app might just use it to count your steps, but it collects and stores everything else too.
That seems like way more data than a simple app should need. And I guess none of this physical information matters unless it can be tied back to me, right? To my digital identity.
You've just hit on the absolute linchpin of the whole system, the device advertising ID.
That's the key.
That is the crucial identifier. It's a unique string of letters and numbers assigned to your device. And companies use this ID to link all that offline behavior, where you walked, what products you stood next to, back to everything they already know about you online. It's the translator between the physical you and the digital you.
This whole system sounds like it depends on us just clicking yes on permission pop-ups without really thinking. This is what's called permission creep, right?
Precisely. Permission creep is when an app systematically asks for way more access than it actually needs to do its job. A video editor wanting your photos? That makes sense. A video editor that wants constant background access to your Bluetooth and motion sensors, that's a huge red flag. That access is almost certainly just there to feed this data ecosystem.
So once this data is scooped up in tags with my advertising ID, it doesn't just sit on the app servers. This is where the data brokers come in.
Yeah, if you connect this to the bigger picture, the data broker industry is the ultimate synthesizer. An app might only know that advertising ID X was near a certain beacon. The broker takes that ID, and they combine it with everything else they've bought: credit card purchases, loyalty card info, public records, and they build these incredibly rich profiles.
How does the data even get from my phone to the broker? Is the app developer just selling it directly?
It usually happens through third-party software development kits or SDKs. Think of an SDK as like a pre-made chunk of code that developers put into their apps. It gives them features like analytics or ads. But these SDKs are often written by the data brokers or analytics firms. So they create a direct pipeline for your data to flow from the app straight back to the broker.
Okay, here's where it gets really unsettling for me. Let's talk about the real-world risks of these profiles.
Oh, sir.
Profiles that know when I go to the gym and how long I spend looking at organic vegetables.
The biggest risk is this kind of hyper-segmentation and discriminatory practices in the real world. For example, if your profile says you're a high-income, loyal shopper based on your movements and purchases, you might only get shown full-price offers, but if your profile suggests you're more budget-conscious, you might get coupons, or you might be excluded entirely because a retailer thinks you're not profitable enough to target.
And that goes way beyond just ads. It could affect things like loan offers or insurance quotes, all based on what they guess from your movements, like how often you visit a certain type of clinic.
Absolutely. The depth of the data allows for this kind of manipulation that you're not even aware is happening. You never agreed to let dozens of downstream companies trade data about your exact movements.
Which brings up a question I hear all the time. Is this even legal? Or is this whole thing happening in some kind of gray area?
Surprisingly, in most places, it is legal, but it's legal because of a very narrow technicality, which is the requirement of disclosure.
So the fine print.
Exactly. The notice is just buried deep inside a privacy policy that no one reads. By putting it there, they've fulfilled their legal duty, even though the user has zero real transparency.
That is an incredible loophole. Okay, let's talk about a common defense people try. Airplane mode. If I'm worried and I flip on airplane mode, am I safe?
It's better than nothing, but it is definitely not foolproof. Airplane mode is great at stopping network-based tracking. It cuts off Wi-Fi, cellular, often Bluetooth. But remember all that raw sensor data we talked about, the motion data. If an app has permission, it's still collecting and storing that locally on your phone while you move around.
And then what?
The moment you turn airplane mode off, or even just reconnect to any Wi-Fi network later that day, that whole backlog of stored physical movement data gets instantly uploaded. The collection happens offline. The transfer just waits until you're back online.
So that completely changes the focus. We can't just toggle signals on and off. We have to get control over what the apps themselves are allowed to do.
Exactly. We have to adopt what I call an audit mindset. The average person has dozens of apps with permissions they just shouldn't have. Gaining control has to be a conscious, proactive effort.
Okay, let's get into the practical steps. The first one is the permission audit. Walk us through how that works.
Go into your phone's privacy settings right now. Look at every single app and check its access to what I call the critical trio: Bluetooth, location, and motion sensors. And just ask yourself, does this app really need this to function? A Maps app needs location, sure. But if a simple game wants constant motion sensor data, you just hit the switch. Disable anything that isn't absolutely vital. That immediately starves the data brokers of their raw material.
Okay, beyond the apps, what about the hardware itself? We talked about those Wi-Fi probe requests.
This one's simple but really effective. Just turn off your Wi-Fi and Bluetooth radios when you're not actively using them. If your device isn't broadcasting or listening, it dramatically shrinks the surface area for this kind of tracking.
Right. If you're just reading a book on the train, there's no reason for either of them to be on.
None at all.
Now let's go back to that linchpin, the device advertising ID. If that's the link between the physical and online worlds, can we break that link?
You absolutely can, and you should probably make it a habit. Every phone's operating system lets you reset that advertising ID in the privacy settings. When you reset it, you basically give the entire data ecosystem a brand new, clean ID for your device. All the history they tied to your old one is now orphaned. It forces them to start from scratch. Doing this, say, once a month is a great privacy practice.
And what about when we're choosing new apps? Can we sort of vote with our wallet?
Definitely. Try to favor paid apps over the free, ad-supported ones when you can. It's a simple transaction. The ad-supported model depends on monetizing your data through those SDKs. When you pay for an app, the financial reason for the developer to sell your data is much, much lower.
And lastly, what about the tools built into our phones? The operating systems themselves.
You should use them to their fullest. Things like Apple's App Tracking Transparency, which forces apps to ask permission to track you, that's a huge win. On Android, use the permission auto reset features. And if you want to go a step further, look into a firewall or a tracker blocking app. It can actually stop the data from being uploaded even if the app managed to collect it.
That's a really good set of strategies. And the key takeaway seems to be that vigilance isn't just about your password anymore. It's about micromanaging what every single app has access to. Even when you feel like you've gone dark, your devices are still logging and listening.
That physical world data is what makes the profiles so valuable. The ones that blend your online clicks with your offline actions. So that vigilance over permissions and your advertising ID, it's just paramount now.
Let's leave our listeners with this final thought to chew on. Given how easily that one ID links our physical movements to our online history, how much of your identity profile is being built completely outside of your awareness? A profile based just on where you go and what you do, not on what you click.
Something to think about the next time an app asks for Bluetooth permission, especially when you're standing outside a store.
Absolutely. Thank you for tuning in to The Privacy Report. If you found this discussion valuable, please like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. One final note. This episode was made with the assistance of AI.